Is it time to give Arne Slot a new contract? Or at least have that conversation?
Yeah, funny enough, we had a chance to speak to Slot before the Palace game, so the last game of last season. Now, I'm going to have to be careful here because some of it was off the record, which is private and just between the people who were there and stuff, and some of it was on the record. And the conversation of a contract did come up. I can't remember what segment of the chat that was in, so I've got to be careful. But he said what you might expect Slot to say about any contract question, even if it was off the record. So he didn't say anything that he wouldn't have said it if the question was about Mo Salah at the time, or Virgil van Dijk, or someone asked him about Ibu Konate tomorrow. He will always say the same thing, won't he? But you look at the performance that he's had since he come in as head coach. June 2024. It's been exceptional, absolutely exceptional, and he's thrust himself into the conversation of some of Europe's best coaches, hasn't he? Mm-hmm. On the back of what he's done at Liverpool. Only signed Chiesa, which wasn't necessarily his signing. That came late. Cut price deal. So he essentially won the league with the same squad that Jurgen Klopp left him with. And he has always professed that is down to the strength of the squad and the health of the club that Jurgen Klopp left her in. But it takes a special coach to be able to do that. You look at the improvements in players. Mo Salah is Mo Salah, but he had one of his best ever seasons under Slot, didn't he? Ryan Gravenberch right now is probably one of the best, certainly top 3, 4, 5 midfielders in Europe. Alexis McAllister has come on leaps and bounds. And just all across the squad, most of the players have improved on his watch. So he's been brilliant. And it's not going to be that long before he's halfway through that 3-year deal. Maybe 3-4 months now. Maybe you get to Christmas and you're looking at he's halfway through. So there has to be some discussions with Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards, I'm sure, to see what Arne thinks of all that. And I'm sure it wouldn't be an issue, but it's just a case of when do they begin? When do those talks step up? And yeah, I think he's fully deserving of a new contract, and that would be his statement to say this has all been a roaring success and we want more of it. Yeah,
and it'll be obviously a commitment from the club to him, and rightfully so as well, a commitment from him to the club, mutually. But in terms of, you'll be probably best placed to tell and sort of remember, timeline-wise, under the regime of FSG, let's just use that ownership model and how they've operated. When have they looked to renew managerially contracts? Because players-wise, we speak about we're into the final 2 years now, so you need to be doing so. You know what I mean? Liverpool have let that run alarmingly deep in recent times. It's fair to say, and even all the way to the end in certain cases as well. But for a manager, would FSG, Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards, et al., would they be looking at it now, do you think, and going, previously we'd have tied Jurgen Klopp down, for example, this is the sort of time we need to be doing it, because as you say, they're into the final 2 years and then some at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it is similar to players, isn't it, in terms of clubs have to pay compensation to take a manager. Like, if Real Madrid came in for Slot tomorrow, there would be a compensation package. You just don't really hear about it as much because it's managers and their coaching staff. But I don't see why it would be that much different, really, for the club in terms of how they go about, renewals with the coaching staff, with Slot and his team. What I do find interesting is he's obviously brought Sip Kulshoff with him, and then he brought in John Heitinger, didn't he? But the rest of the backroom team is not necessarily his men. Mm-hmm. They are recruits of FSG who feel that these are the best people for the job. So it's a totally newly assembled backroom team as a result. Clearly it seems to be working, but it's not one where Slot has come in and gone, I'm the boss and I'm bringing my team with me. So, that should theoretically help with, when managers are wanted by other clubs, they tend to move with their team, don't they? So he's obviously got his trusted assistant there, and I'm sure they are enjoying life as much as he is at Liverpool. It's on the pitch, it's been absolutely fantastic, hasn't it? So there's not many, stumbling blocks in theory to stop Slot getting a new contract. You know, he fully deserving of it in my eyes, and I don't think it'd be too much of an issue from his side either.
No, all the signs point towards, and it's interesting you mentioned obviously some of the appointments there. And I wonder, do you think Van Bronckhorst is like an FSG hire then, for want of a better expression? Because it doesn't feel a slot hire. Obviously, Sipka Hulshoff is clearly his lieutenant, is trustworthy one at that, but with Van Bronckhorst, it's too simplistic to say the Dutch connection means the slot approval, you would imagine, on that?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. You know, clearly there is the Dutch connection there, but, you know, would they have wanted a coach of a similar profile in terms of, you know, John Heisinger, he was at West Ham under David Moyes, wasn't he? He was coach of Ajax Young before, obviously now he's the main head coach there. Van Bronckhorst has got manager experience, hasn't he, at loads of clubs, and obviously was a Dutch international himself. So, yeah, I'm not sure who had the final say on that one. It does feel like it might be more of a Slot appointment than one or two others, but it's clearly, you know, the way Liverpool are working now with Michael Edwards at the top, the appointments are, you know, there's a rigorous process to them all. It's not necessarily you're coming in as the manager and you bring your 3, 4, 5 backroom staff members with you. It's totally different now.
Well, just on that as well, like you mentioned the backroom staff there and sort of who's been brought into that particular fold. But I think this summer in particular, you touched upon the previous summer, obviously only bringing in Chiesa at the last knock-ins. This summer itself was proof, if it was needed, of just how much trust he's earned and how much faith Liverpool clearly have in Arne Slot. To break the British transfer record twice and to splash the cash in a way we've never seen before. There's a lot of, you know, outgoings to offset some of this, of course, there were, and there was reasons as to why we had to do what we did in the transfer market, absolutely. But it doesn't say to us that if FSG are willing to give Arne Slot the sort code and the account number essentially and the bank card to go wild with and spend lavishly in Richard Hughes all summer, it doesn't say that actually we're not certain about you and the likelihood is we might not give you a new deal.
100%, yeah. It's night and day, isn't it, to a situation at Manchester United, for example, where Erik ten Hag was allowed to spend about 200 million last summer, and then he lasts to the end of October. Ruben Amorim does similar this year, and there's already talk that, you know, his job is under threat. So yeah, totally different situation there with Liverpool to allow this sort of historic levels of spend, even accounting for the money that's come in to essentially half it. It's still, you know, a huge showing of faith and trust from the people who make these decisions, you know, at the very top of the club, you know, the ownership level, an ownership decision, as it's usually called in the FSG circles. So it's clearly Slot has the trust, and Richard Hughes has it as well, given the success that the club has enjoyed on the pitch over the last 12 months. Interesting.
You know what? You just piqued my interest about Richard Hughes. The sporting directors have contracts as well. That's a really silly thing to say. Surely they do, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I seen a thing the other day saying, there was a report saying Liverpool are looking to extend, I think it was Michael Edwards' contract, FSG are looking to extend. And I was thinking, I'm not sure whether they work in the same way players do. I guess they're just standard terms of employment.
Hires.
Yeah. Like, I don't know about you, but I haven't got a 5-year contract for the Echo. Or
no, that's very true. No, you're right, actually. Yeah, you might be right. And Richard Hughes may well fall into that bracket as opposed to... But for what it's worth. And also, you know, terms come into this, I think, because we're talking, you're right to bring in Richard Hughes in terms of if FSG are willing to give him the same freedom when it comes to spending and have complete faith that he's going to spend it wisely, likewise with Arne Slot. Like, they deserve a bit of reward, and they're getting remunerated pretty well, the pair of them.
Yeah.
But also when it comes to their salaries, like, your starting salary, in theory, it should go up when you perform well and you're successful at your job. And let's be honest, both of them have been exactly that up until this point.
Yeah. I mean, you know... we all know the ballpark figures of a footballer's salary. Managers, less so, but we all see some figures reported and whatever else, and maybe the highest paid managers in the world now. I mean, Simeone, funnily enough, is the highest paid manager in the world, so you'd have to check what he is on, but I think maybe you're looking at sort of 5 to 10 million, roughly. But I've no idea what a sporting director would be on, you know, a top-level sporting director. And nor should we really. It's like any other job, you don't know what the salaries are unless you're in that industry. But I think when I spoke to Liverpool chairman Tom Werner over the summer, and the thing that he stressed was FSG don't meddle, which I think might have come as a little bit of a surprise to some people. In terms of if the people in the football operations department think that the budget is best used on one player in Florian Wirtz, for example. Obviously, Liverpool's brought in more than one player, but if they feel that X amount of the percentage of the budget is worth going on Alexander Isak, the owners trust the people who they have employed in these football roles to make those decisions. So, maybe that is, a counterpoint to the perceived wisdom, particularly online, of how FSG operates and ruling with an iron fist and, very stringent on the budgets. It is essentially, by the sounds of that conversation I had, the people, the sporting directors and the head coaches and the recruitment departments who make all the decisions on what they're able to spend on certain players. And that doesn't mean that they have an unlimited budget. They do have to sort of go cap in hand at times, I guess, and say, Leverkusen have asked for another 5 million. Is it doable? But they don't stand in the way if these people in the top jobs believe that these players can come in and make Liverpool a better team.
Yeah, interesting, yeah, and they've done it up until this point really, really impressively, and it's a lot of responsibility. So if you haven't already, Mr. FSGs, sort out Richie Tudor pay rise and Arne Slot's new contract, please.
That was a clip from Journo Insight. To check out the whole show, head to redmenplus.com or click the link in the description.